No, Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, amen. My dear faithful, I'll be brief about it. But Father Joe Pfeiffer received his notification of expulsion from the Society of St. Pius X. And it's always the same problem that we are facing since the first and second canonical monitions. That is, we are basically accused of preaching scandalous sermons. That's the accusation. Or we are being accused of spreading calumnies about our beloved Superior General. Now, if we are to be condemned justly, what needs to be done is not simply to say that we are scandalous or that we have calumniated. Just like when you investigate a murder, when the accused is accused of murder, you are not going to send him to the gallows by just telling him you are a murderer. You must tell him which person he murdered, when or how and for what reasons, and so on and so forth. You must describe the action and establish that a murder actually took place. And in this document of Father Pfeiffer, nothing is said. In this document, nothing is said about the nature of the calumny and why this calumny is false, or which are those wrongful statements and why these wrongful statements are false. For centuries, each time the Church has punished a priest for his teaching, she has always taken his teaching. Are these your teaching, Martin Luther? Martin Luther answers, yes. Is this your proposition? You confirm that you say this? Yes. Well, then this does not compare with what is taught by the Catholic Church. There is a mismatch. On account of this mismatch, we throw you out. So they have to do the same. They have to explain to you, otherwise we are going to continue to spread. And our group in Kuala Lumpur is going to grow from what it is now, 20 people, is going to grow to something more, something bigger. Our faithful in the Philippines are going to grow bigger. They have to answer, they have to say, where did we spread lies? What are our lies about Bishop Philip? And this is precisely in order to not to commit any lies about Bishop Philip, that I want to see Bishop Philip, that I talked to him and I took a transcript of what he says. And I have the promise that the exact transcript of this conversation should be sent to me. Because I wanted to know whether it's true or not that Bishop Philip is teaching now a doctrine which is in departure from the doctrine of Archbishop Lefebvre and ultimately from the doctrine of the Catholic Church. New doctrine which is basically that the Council of Vatican II has errors, but these errors can be overcome. They are not that bad. They can be overcome. And as a consequence, we fail now, the official organs of the SSPX fail to point to the scandals and heresies of Benedict XVI. They fail to condemn adequately and publicly, in a big way, as Archbishop Lefebvre did in his time. They fail to condemn the mockery of the first commandment in Assisi 3. And all these other teachings that are being spread, the new teachings that are being spread in the Society of St. Pius X. So they need to tell us, where did we lie? On these grounds, can we be proven guilty? Because, for instance, when they say that we are disobedient, we don't take our assignments, well, I couldn't take my assignment in France because I was put to silence on these issues. Those are grave issues that need to be addressed, that need to be denounced. And so, if I'm being put to silence, that I'm contradicting myself. It would be an admission that what I was saying was false. And that I cannot do. Because they have not yet refuted the claims we've made since the month of May. That there was a real intention of placing us under the new rule. Now the new rule is not interested. So they did not accept the April 15th declaration of Bishop Philip. And so now the negotiations have to restart again. And Cardinal Muller, just a few days ago, expresses an interest into restarting the negotiations. We don't have the answer of Metzingen about it. But there is this problem, but then there's the bigger problem, is that now the opinion within our ranks, within our faith, and I talked even to my sister who reads Dici, the opinion about Benedict XVI, the opinion about the nature of the new Rome now is changing, and that prepares the ground for a deal whenever the deal is going to happen. Because if you keep on painting the new Rome with pink paint, eventually it will look good. That paves the way for a deal. And then there is a new doctrine about Vatican II. That Vatican II can be accepted in the light of tradition. That's the new doctrine. The evidence is there. And I need to confirm that. I want to see Bishop Tissin-Malray. Bishop Tissin-Malray confirms that he has got many more quotes of Bishop Fellay favorable to the Council of Vatican II. Now, in the resume of the conversation, Bishop Tissier does not mention this. He mentions, I've done enough preaching against the deal. I am against the deal myself. I was very vocal about it. That's the number one, all right? But since his resume is very short, he was not able to mention that Bishop Fellay's doctrine is very worrisome to him. And that's a major problem in our society. That's what we talked at length together. Now, Bishop Tissier condemns the way I do things. That is, I attack, I expose the errors of Bishop Fellay in public. That he condemns. He says I should remain silent and leave the defense of the society to the big people of the society. I'm just a simple soldier, and so he's not happy of me making a public stand. To which I told him, if the shepherds are sleeping, then it's the dogs who are going to bark. If the dogs are sleeping, then it will be the male sheep who, with the little horns that they have, will do something. All right? But you know, if Bishop Tissier exposes the errors of Bishop Fellay, then I would have to fall in line. I would be, or I would simply have to repeat what Bishop Tissier is saying. Now I'm repeating what Bishop Tissier told me, you know, under the rooftop. What he told me under the rooftop or in a private room, I say it on the rooftops. But this is what I heard under the rooftop, and what I heard also from Father Glaise, from you know, all the monks and priests that I visited in France. On all of those, study carefully what Bishop Fellay says. That what is said in a private place is under the cover. I say it on the rooftops. Now you have to prove that it is a wrong thing to do. But I don't think it's the wrong thing to do. I think this is eventually what shall torpedo, you know, any risk for us to compromise and to allow the SSPX to fall under the new rule. Even though I'm not understood today, or my aim is to help the society, to serve the society. And that's what I wish, to prevent the society from falling through the exposure of, you know, what is taking place under the surface. If what I said is false, then I deserve to be condemned. But you understand, it needs to be showed what I said, which I said is false. Because I make a document, I excuse the council. Those are quotes. Are those quotes real or not? No. So verify the origin of the quote. Did Bishop Fellay say when he said, quote, when they asked me, does Vatican II belong to tradition? I answered, or I certainly wish that it should. I really hope that it should be the case. Something like that. Now you got to go back on the June the 8th interview. Did Bishop Fellay say it or not? Now, if he didn't say it, I committed a calumny to Bishop Fellay, for which, because of the gravity of the calumny, for which I should be expelled from the society. Yes. If there is a calumny there. If there is no calumny, I'm innocent. So, enough said about it for the moment. Now, let's talk about the little flower. You know, her parents, Monsieur Martin, was called in Alençon, le patriarche. They would call him le patriarche. He had the beard, kind of one of Civil War General Hood has the same beard as the long beard of Monsieur Martin, and they call him le patriarche in Alençon. Every morning he would go to mass at 5 o'clock in the morning, and his neighbors, his Catholic neighbors, would criticize them because Zélie Martin had so many pregnancies. Many of them, most of them, were miscarriages. She had fragile health, and she had lots of pregnancies. And they would criticize her as being unwise and for having too many children. Because you must know that in France is divided by the French Catholic population is always divided in two: the liberal Catholics and the good Catholics. And from the 18th century onwards, the liberal Catholics are cheating on the laws of marriage, trying to have less children without the permission of God, or without the means that God allows, by using means that God does not allow. And so the liberal Catholics were criticizing Zélie Martin. Zélie Martin Monsieur Martin never paid any attention to it. But the other thing which is disturbing for that time is that on Sunday, Monsieur Martin, who was a jeweler, would shut down his shop, whereas the other Catholics of the other jewelry shops of that city would open their shop for business, because on Sunday people stroll around and they don't mind to buy things on Sunday, being liberal as they are. And so Mr. Martin was singled out in Alençon. And other reasons, I don't know, I don't remember, but there are other reasons. The Martin family realized that Alençon was too liberal. It was too liberal a city to stay there. And so they moved out of that city of Alençon and they went to Lisieux. Otherwise, the little flower would be called Saint Therese of Alençon, which is not. Alençon was a liberal Catholic town. So they went to Lisieux. And there in Lisieux, she grew up, going every morning with her daddy to mass at 5 o'clock in the morning. And they were bizarre. They were still bizarre. People were wondering, maybe a little less than in Alençon. But they were wondering at what they were doing. This old man, already his beard already graying. This old man going so early at the mass, at the first mass in the morning, with his little girl. And also in the afternoon, they would go out by the canal. So they would stroll under the trees, and they would go by the canal. And then Zélie said to her husband, "Don't do that, honey, because you are going to spoil that girl. You're going to, tu vas la gâter. You're going to spoil her." And what was the spoiling consisting in? They would go by this canal and they would sit down there and contemplate. Maybe not even meditate, I would say, but contemplate. Unite their spirits with God. Talk to God. That's what they were doing. So they would sit on the bench or on the riverside and they would simply, in silence, engage in a conversation with God. And that's why Zélie Martin said, maybe she was a little bit off when she said, "You're going to spoil her." Or what they were doing is was going out and exercising, not only some prayers like the rosary, no, they were exercising the highest form of prayer, which is contemplation, which is this amicable gazing at God, which is the highest form of prayer we can possibly do. And this, the soul of the little flower was very well fed by her father. She would approach the sacraments every day with her daddy, go and pray with him. Her daddy, his nickname, le patriarche, is actually a correct nickname, because that's what the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, were doing. They were tending their flocks. And then Abraham, especially, he left his hometown of Ur and went far away. It's the same as Monsieur Martin had to leave his town in order to be a better person. And they were also contemplating people, walking in the presence of God, And the consequence is that the soul of the little girl was completely ablaze with the divine love. And she could not stop loving her God and desiring to give herself entirely to Him. To such an extent that she wanted to get a dispensation and enter the Carmel, which is a very tough rule, at the age of 15. And since the bishop would say no, or would say no in the clerical, he'd say, I'll think about it, or ask somebody else, she would go straight to the Holy Father in Rome in order to get the permission. And her father would go and take the train with her. And they would go all the way to Rome and ask the permission to Leo XIII, who sure enough told them, yeah, go and consult your bishop. You have a bishop, ask him. So they went back. But eventually she got her way. You know how the women do in those matters. So she got her way. And this to understand clearly that the love of God is something serious. We have to love our God with all our strength, with all our mind, with all our spirit. And that implies all our time, all our means. The center of our life, the goal of our life, is our infinite and eternal God. The rest is a matter of options and accidents and side issues, side concern. God must be put at the center of our lives. Otherwise, we are liberals. Otherwise, we lose our salt. And this can also happen to us traditional Catholics. And this can also explain why we have a crisis within the SSPX. What I hear, for instance, is some lady saying to the other, you are multiplying like rabbits. You need to see Father so and so that he may advise you how to do like I do, spacing your children, so you have less children. And then the priests are divided on the issue. Half of the priests say no, and half of the priests say yes. So which one is right? And then we have got other issues that are touching liberalism in many other domains, on the use of the electronics, on the issue of modesty, and on the issue of mixing rites, or going to the indult mass, or seeing clearly the difference between the indult mass and the mass of the Society of St. Pius X, and other manifestations of liberalism can be clearly now seen amongst us. That the families are not following the same code. Or for instance, the French liberals, they blame the American families for having many children and their women are too modest. Well, I was in America, I didn't see anything scandalous about the modesty of the American ladies. Maybe they have a lesser taste, maybe. But as far as the modesty, it's the French ladies very often are not doing the right thing. And they are the ones who get Father Beauvais screaming all the time against them. And Father Beauvais is right. And those families in France that have many children are criticized by the liberal families. I've seen that. I've seen a father of family, and he had several other families jumping on him because he had so many children. And there was you couldn't see a case that Pius XII gives, of serious disease or serious health problem in his wife, or dire poverty of the family, because the man was an engineer for aeronautics. He's one of the designer of the cooling system is a designer of the breathing system and the conditioning of the Rafale fighter plane. He's one of those designers. He took the previous design and he made it more compact for this war plane. So no problem as far as the economics, and no depression in his wife, and no great health danger for his wife. But he had so many liberal Catholics around him, jumping on him, blaming him for having too many children. So it's a serious issue of liberalism. Those parents who could put their kids in a correct school but don't put them in the correct school. That's another problem. Or those parents who don't train their kids in the faith. Or those families who do not have the family prayers anymore. Many of our families don't have the rosary every day, contrary to what Our Lady is asking. There is no serious prayer life in the family. That's liberalism as well, where God is relegated to the Sunday and not necessarily to the main Mass on Sunday, but to the 6:30 p.m. Mass on Sunday, or the low Mass at the end of the morning, at 12:30. That's okay if it happens once in a while, but if every Sunday you stay in bed until 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and you always go to the late Mass, there's a problem with you. Your God is of lesser importance. Now, all these manifestations of liberalism, and when they are not put in check by the clergy, it means that we are ripe for a crisis of the nature that we are facing now, because now you have two teachings in the Society of St. Pius X. You see, you clearly have those priests who think that the New Rome is not all that bad, the Indian is not all that bad, and that it would be nice to have a deal. Say, we're going to take our time, we're going to have guarantees and everything, but those priests are in favor of the deal, like the priests in Germany, 30 of them out of 40, many priests in the US, smaller amount of priests in France. And they disagree with the other confreres. They disagree with Bishop Tissin Malray. They say Bishop Tissin Malray, his sermons are out of place. They disagree. And the French liberal Catholics disagree with the sermons of Bishop Tissin Malray, who is simply talking against the deal in general, or against the New Rome in general. And not saying much more than that. But he's being criticized. His books were not published by our publishing house in France. It was published by the Dominicans of Avrier. And in the US, his book was not published altogether in the United States for the English language. We are still waiting for his book to be published in English. It's an important book. It's maybe hard to read, but it's an important book that tells us that the crisis is still on, that the errors of Vatican II are raging in a big way in the teachings of Benedict XVI. Something that you have to know, because in the month of May and June we were just about maybe to have a deal with Rome. If Rome had accepted the April 15th doctrinal preamble of Bishop Fellé, we would have been under Rome. We would have already have a prelature maybe, but it would be on the way. And so it's at this time that we need to know in detail what is the thought of Benedict XVI. And this is what the Martin family understood. They understood that they had to stay away from liberalism. And so, as we are being thrown out, we are being received by those families that are concerned. And I don't mean that those families are perfect people. No. Because we already see that even those who are interested to support us, and defend the same position, also are, human beings with their own defects. Those are not perfect people. But at least we ask them to understand that liberalism is something to which we could also not escape if we do not keep our vigilance against it. Because the air we breathe is liberalism. We were born in liberalism. All of us are sinners. All of us have sinned in these matters at one point in our lives. But at least we want to be aware of it, and we want to make sure that our faith will at least not be endangered. Because eventually liberalism slides further into modernism. And modernism kills the faith, as you see in what's happening with the Novus Ordo. It eventually destroys our connection with God. Liberalism is a stage. It's we are in between life and death. It's a poison of our time. It's the pale horse of the apocalypse, which is neither black or white. It's grey. And the rider of the pale horse of the apocalypse is death. That's the name of the rider. It's the most deadly horse of the three evil horses mentioned by St. John. And we don't want that. But the root of not being a liberal is not to think yourself better than the others. I hope this is not our behavior. I hope we are accused of being proud, yes. But I hope this is not our behavior. I really pray today to God. I really ask the little flower to understand what she understood. That this infinite charity of our God, this infinite charity that forces us to give ourselves entirely to God in all simplicity, to follow the truth in all simplicity. When she died, she said, "In all things I simply follow the truth." The truth that Archbishop Lefebvre told us was the Council of Vatican II is the worst disaster in the history of the Church. Therefore, like little children, we must say, how is that possible that now we mitigate the errors of Vatican II when that Vatican II was the worst disaster in the history of the Catholic Church? It's normal that as little children we ask that simple little question. Or when Bishop Fele makes a statement which is favorable of Vatican II, you tell me that you are against Vatican II, but why did you give that statement which is in favor of Vatican II? Or if you are against Vatican II, why did you keep quiet on this false ecumenism of Benedict XVI in Assisi III? Or if you are against Vatican II, why do you excuse Benedict XVI? Why all this confusion with the Rosary Crusade of 2007 and 2009? Why this confusion? Half of us are happy about it, and the other half is not happy about it. So why all this confusion? We ask simple questions, because we see a contradiction. Why do you lift the excommunication of Archbishop Lefebvre when he was not excommunicated in the first place? Don't lift something which was not there in the first place. Declare that he was not excommunicated in the first place. Yes. Or why do you say that you allow the traditional Mass when you allow it under a condition of Vatican II and accepting the new Mass as being of at least equal or if not superior value to the traditional Mass? That is not allowing the traditional Mass. Allowing with this type of strings is not a liberty for the traditional Mass. It's simply the repeat of the previous unjust 1984 motu proprio. Or, indult, not motu proprio, indult of 1984. It's a repeat of the same injustice with a better wrapping. It's a simple question. We want to keep things simple because we love our God. And His divine love comes to us through this traditional Mass. And from the reality of this sacrifice. Because what's at stake is the reality of the charity of our God. They attacked Archbishop Lefebvre saying, yeah, you like what is gory, you are old style, you want to have a severe form of religiosity. And Archbishop Lefebvre said, no, we stick to this Mass because that's the way our God chose to love us. He chose to love us through His sacrifice of the cross. And the sacrifice of the cross translates itself into a very real presence of His divine love, by which the host is deposited in our hearts. It's the reality of the charity of our God that must make us anti-liberals. Let us not be anti-liberals just to be anti-liberals. Otherwise, we will become bitter, we might follow the sedevacantist path. We must do all these things for the sake of charity. And we strongly believe that the management of the Society of St. Pius X is putting at risk the reality of the virtue of charity by endangering the faith, by placing us into situations or desiring to place us into situations that are so dangerous to the faith, and also by failing to show the wolves as they are. This failure is very dangerous, because for the sheep to survive, they need to be shown where is the danger, which are the wolves, and which are the shepherds. And so I truly hope and pray that our motivations are coming from charity. Otherwise, the accusation of pride against us stands true. Otherwise, we are prideful and disobedient and whatever. But I repeat, they must tell us if the accusations against Bishop Philip are false and where they are false, and also they must show that we are not motivated by charity. They must show that we have acted against charity. That's why, if there is anything in the way we do things, maybe in poor choice of expression at times, or the tone is imperfect, I'm willing to admit that there might have been. But when I presented my excuse about this to Bishop Philip, he accepted it immediately, because he understands that in the heat of the action, we can have a poor choice of attitude or poor choice of words. But the problem that we have is that we are not in agreement on a matter of doctrine with our beloved superior any longer. We don't agree with them on the matter of doctrine. And that is very, very grave. And if they want to protect you, my dear faithful, from us, if we are really wicked Martin Luthers, they need to show you where our accusation is false, where our doctrine is false. It is not enough just to say that they are bad, they are disobedient, that Bishop Tissier does not agree with what they do, even though he agrees with what they think. That's not enough. They must say where is the problem in their teaching. And this, we are still waiting for that. They say we are Pharisees, we are exaggerating the liberalism which is in any organization. Well, do we exaggerate when we attack Dicci? Yes or no? Go and find the facts for yourself and see how much Dicci fails to denounce the scandals of Benedict XVI. Just one click away from you to see whether we lie or not about Dicci. So this is what's at stake. And if they don't do that, then they are helping us. They are showing us that from the month of May, they are refusing to address the doctrinal difference that has appeared in this year 2012. Before 2012, we were simply worried. And we gave the benefit of the doubt to our superiors. We are writing letters, like those 50 priests, or 40 or 50 priests, wrote letters in the month of May 2012. Those letters got archived. There was no result. But we were not so worried. 2012 for us is a year where the ugly beast goes above the surface of the water. Before then, there was some movements, but it was not enough. What was just very worried, what really concerned us the most, is this April 14th letter of the General Council reply to the three bishops. This is really what showed us that we have a real issue. If you don't believe me, read the letter and see for yourself that it is the same manner of speech as Bishop Griffin or the Society of St. Peter in their time. The same manner of speech. The minimizing of the errors of Vatican II, the minimizing of the problems with the 16th, and the extolling of a canonical solution which is presented to us, and a massive distrust of the General Council towards these three bishops, who still to this day do not agree with the new thought that has emerged in the upper echelons of the Society of St. Pius X. So that's all I want to say. So let us keep the charity of the little flower. Let us ask her, to give us that simplicity so we may stay good warriors of Christ. She said, I'd come to Carmel with a sword in hand. She was a hard fighter. Her little way is not a pinky way. It's a little way, it's a simple way. It's a way which is easy because of divine charity. And our fight is not so difficult if you understand that it is motivated by the virtue of charity. All we want is to keep our good God secure. Keep His divine love secure in our hearts. Keep our sovereign love to Him secure and confirmed by our speech and confirmed by our actions until we get this eternal and infinite taste of the divine goodness in the house is not made by the hand of man, waiting for us, this house which is eternal in the heavens. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.